All right, well, first of all, thank you all for being here and covering Wartburg football. I mean, that's a big deal to us to be able to get our name out there and have you here today is great. Certainly we're excited for the 2022 season. I think we've got a hungry group this fall. We feel like we've got something to prove after last season. Kind of feel like we were a play or two away from being a playoff team last year. And so I think the guys this offseason really approach things as, hey, we've got to clean some things up in terms of the way that we're approaching our day-to-day values, trying to incorporate team, toughness, being humble, hungry, and smart. That's kind of like those are our mantras right now. And what we're trying to do here in camp is build that. So starting with team, that's been the goal of camp, just bringing a group of 144 guys together and having those guys all on the same page takes some work. And the other piece of this thing that we've really been focusing on with our camp is just taking it one day at a time, trying to win the day. I know that's kind of cliche, but it's easy to get caught up on focusing on, the first game or winning a championship and all that. But none of that's going to matter unless we take care of today. And so one of the things I've challenged the guys here in camp is to, write down a few things that you want to work on today and then make sure we work on those, we get those accomplished. And next day, let's do that again. If we can stack days on days, we got a chance to get to where we want to be. So that's kind of been our focus of camp right now. Like I said, building the team, trying to help guys learn how to develop themselves both on and off the field, both as an athlete and as a person. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of that. So I'm excited about where we're at. I think we're on the right track and looking forward to getting this season rolling. In terms of just our key returners, people that are coming back right now, I'll start on the defensive side of the ball. I really think on that side you're going to see our front seven being something that's pretty dominant. I don't know, it's been a while since I think we've had a front seven like we've got right now. So I'm talking about the D-line and linebacker groups. But our front seven from a year ago is all back. We're all back. All 7 starters are ready to roll. Probably the headliner, Antonio Santian, is the preseason All-American Mike linebacker for us. He's been 2-time All-Conference, All-Region player, captain of our team. He's great. Alongside of him at that linebacker level, Owen Grover, also an all-conference performer from a year ago, another one of our team captains. If you look at our defensive line, Jordan Downing and Freddie Hush are both all-conference performers that are returning as well in that front seven. Jordan is one of our captains on our team. And then, the other guys along the way, Donovan Juarez, Riley Conradi would be 2 guys that started for us at D-tackle last year. Nate Link was a starter at outside linebacker for us. And so 4 of our front 7 returning all-conference players, 4 fifth-year guys in that front 7, and so I'm just excited about that group on defense. Probably what you're wondering a little bit about is that secondary. When you lose JoJo McNair, Eli Barrett, some pretty key pieces to what we were doing a year ago. That's definitely going to be a spot that we're trying to develop, but I think there's a little bit more experience there maybe than people realize. Last year with some injuries, Trent Rolling at corner and Drew Weifels at corner both played pretty much the last half of the year. Were starting games for us. Trent was actually the American Rivers Conference Player of the Week on defense in the final week of the season. Drew Weifels had a pick 6 against Dubuque. That was a huge play to seal, to kind of put us in a good position in that game. So some experience there. Our safeties, Dylan Steen, Parker Rochford. Dylan's going to be a senior this year. Parker's only a sophomore, but the Rochford name around here at Wartburg has been a long-standing name in Wartburg football, and so he's a ball player for sure. And then inside that group, besides, I think that'll be our starting 4 as of right now, the way things are unfolding. We also have Colin Schroeder, who's a 5th-year corner coming back for us. Caleb Lamphere, who is fighting some injuries, but I think has got a great chance of independence as a junior this year, and at corner. And then Thane Alexander, a young safety for us as a sophomore, has been really impressive in camp. And then we'll have a few other guys in the mix, but those would be some names to look out for in that secondary. A couple other guys, I want to go back to the front 7 real quick. A couple of guys I had in my notes just to keep an eye on that maybe hasn't been out there, but Christian Nunley and Justin Greif on our D-line have been having a great camp. Christian's from West Delaware High School down the road, a sophomore. He's going to be pushing some of those starters that are 5th-year guys for that spot. I mean, he's doing great. Justin's the guy who moved from linebacker to D-line. Has got some tremendous upside. Has been doing very well for us. And then that linebacker, Caleb Dodd, has kind of been a package guy for us in the past year. He's from Waterloo West. He's a 5th-year guy. brings a lot of experience on special teams and our third down package. And then Preston Rochford, so that's Parker's older brother. He's going to be a fourth-year senior for us this year at linebacker. And so, again, I really feel good about the defensive side of the ball, a lot of experience, and some guys up front that I think can be dominant and really take control of the game. Flipping to the offense real quick. So the offensive side, I would say the strength on that side is going to be in the backfield. If you look at our running back group, we got a stable. Headlining that is going to be Hunter Clawson, his first team all-conference last year. He actually led the league in yards per rush last season. The year before that, he was an all-conference, or whatever, in 2019, I should say. 2020 didn't have a season, but in 19, he was an all-conference return specialist, so just a dynamic player. Can do a lot of things in the football field, and we love having him out there in the backfield, getting the ball as much as possible. Ben Bryant's another name that you should get familiar with. Ben is a very versatile back. He was an all-conference return specialist last season for us, and kind of one of those guys that come out of the backfield, catching the ball, running with the ball, handing it to him. He's explosive. He can make big plays, and also has got great balance and breaks a lot of tackles. Austin Griffin, another guy that maybe you don't know quite as much about, but a fifth-year senior for us this year. It's been a good workhorse back there, too. Kind of a change of pace, physical runner, steady guy that we're excited to have back. And then I think a name that's really going to bust on the scene this fall that you should keep an eye on, Bryson White from Linn-Mar High School. He's a sophomore this year. And, man, he has been explosive in camp. And I can see him being kind of that hybrid of slot, running back, moving him around, just finding ways to get him in the ball in his hands and some space. He's an explosive player. So, again, that running back group, you might see some of them lining up in some different spots as we get going and trying to use as many of those guys as we can. And then kind of sticking in that backfield, everyone wants to know about the guy pulling the trigger. Certainly, Nyle Mclaughlin is a guy that we're excited about. Nyle, when we recruited him out of North Scott High School, was an all-state quarterback, great leader for them. Coming in, we had high hopes for him. He kind of dealt with a shoulder injury early in his career. Last year, he was our main backup to Jace Moore, and you saw him mix in some games last year. And this spring, he's really blossomed into what we thought he'd be. He's got a strong arm, great pocket presence, smart quarterback. He's not going to be the same as Jace when it comes to running around and scrambling around, but man, he can sling it from back there, and he really understands football. So, we're excited about him. And then, the other guy, we're sticking to the North Scott deal, Carter Markham he'll be our backup quarterback right now. Carter in the 2020 season in high school won a state championship with North Scott. He's a little bit more one of those versatile quarterbacks that we can let him run with it. He does some things with his legs that are pretty impressive and still has a very strong arm. So you're going to see some things package-wise, trying to utilize his strengths in our offense as well. So like I said, that backfield I'm excited about. Obviously, those guys can only be as good as people up front. So talking about our offensive line here a little bit for you. We're going to be anchored in the offensive line by two fifth-year seniors. Sam Reyes and Robert Cruz are two guys coming back this year that played a big role. Sam has started for 2 years for us. Rob started most of the year last year for us. And those two guys are going to be the anchor of what we're doing up front as fifth-year leaders. Tucker Kinney is another guy that came onto the scene last year as a sophomore, started every game at tackle for us when he was healthy. And, I'm excited about what you'll be able to pick him out of the crowd. He looks a little different than the others in terms of his size and length. Pretty impressive guy. We actually moved, so one of our guards this year that I'm penciling in right now is one of our stars, Alex Lehman. You might be familiar with that name if you followed our team last year. He was a defensive tackle that started a number of games for us and was pretty dominant inside, trying to help build our offensive line, a little bit more strength to that side. Moved Alex over there in the spring, and he has just stepped up. He's bumped up to 282 pounds here over the summer. Still moves like he did playing D-line, and I'm looking forward to seeing him out there. And then Ethan Stockwell was a guy in our two deep that I think will be, really pushing to be the next other tackle in that five-man front. And then you can keep an eye like Will Conlon, Wyatt Folkerts. Those would be two guys to keep an eye on. Last year they were playing D-line as well. We shifted them over to offensive line in the spring and added some athleticism to that group. And then Brant Peterson will be a senior that'll also be pushing kind of in that top 8 offensive line group. And then last but not least, our guys in the perimeter, our wide receiver crew. We are returning our number one, wide out from a year ago. Drake George was our leading receiver. Last year was his first year playing full-time in college football. You guys might remember a little bit about him if you followed high school football from Western Dubuque. He was part of that run that they had there. Really good high school athlete. Kind of started to step up last year and just has continued to develop. So I'm excited about Drake's future moving forward. Darius Whaley's another guy that started a bunch of games for us last year that you'll see out there, making some plays. A couple guys you might have saw late in the year last year, Carter Bussimus, Thor Mockstead. They were sophomores last year, had a great offseason, and really both of them have some explosive ability that I'm looking forward to seeing this fall. And then Patrick Mulholland will be a senior for us. That should be a steady guy out there getting in the mix. And Brock Califf, be a little slot guy that just has he's a little water bug out there. He can make a lot of plays in space, and so you'll see him doing some things as well. And then, I should mention our tight ends. We did pretty much graduate our tight end group. The one guy that is coming back, Tom Butters, is a name you'll probably remember hearing and seeing last year. We're glad to have him back, but we're still evolving that tight end group with some young players. We'll see how that goes, but Tom will be one of our featured guys at that position group. And then specialists, we also turned over our specialists last year, and so that's, right now I don't really have a starter penciled in yet. I would say one name to keep an eye on, Cale O'Neill at kicker from Solon has done a really nice job for us here this fall getting going, and I think he's got a chance to do some things for us moving forward. So anyway, just kind of giving you a sense for who our personnel is right now, some things that I'm seeing out there, and hopefully that gives you some good data on where we feel like we're at. So obviously, questions.
How do you feel with the wide receivers? Because that was offensively the one group that just wasn't quite there. You have a spurt from this guy, a spurt from that guy, and some would do really well man-to-man, some do well in zone. So have they matured to the point where, because it's just such a small difference between average and really good?
No doubt. I think that's something that we've been trying to address. I think that's where a guy like Carter Bussimus, Thor Mockstead, those were a couple guys last year that were still kind of getting their feet wet that I think can, when he said playing some man coverage, making some plays, a little bigger bodied wide receiver that can make some plays on the ball down the field. I also like, again, this idea of utilizing a few of these running backs in the slot, letting those guys be a little more explosive from there. But yeah, we've got to be able to stretch field vertically. That was really one of our challenges last year, is we had this stable of backs and we started to utilize them, but we were not able to, really take the top off the defense and keep people from, kind of packing that thing in there. And I think a few of those names I just mentioned will be part of that, and that's something we've been working hard to develop this offseason.
So if you can do that, and with the changes Wheels made last year, the offense, it's probably the most creative year he's ever had. Do you feel you could hit like a complete new level with that change of the running backs, but also taking the top off? I do.
I think our offense, that's one of the goals of the offseason, was to get more explosive on offense, right? We were able to last year. I think in the past, if you looked at Coach Wheeler, and you guys know our offense coordinator, that's been our MO, is explosive. We've had a wide out, a quarterback, whatever that could make those style of plays. And last year, that was a little bit of an adjustment for him too. And so we found ourselves a little bit more playing plays from the red zone, where a lot of times when we get down around the 35-yard line, we're hitting something over the top and we're in, and we didn't really execute as well in the red zone. So I think two things. One, we've got to get, like you said, that point where we can take the top off the defense, score explosively, and that's been one of the off-season focuses. And the other focus has been then, hey, when we do get the ball down in here, let's make sure we're able to execute and finish off those drives and put points on the board. Because I really feel like if you look at a couple of those games that we didn't win last year, that was a big part. That was the difference, right? We were unable to finish when we get down in there, and putting 7 points on the board is a big deal. So yeah, I think that explosive aspect on our offense, and I still think some of that comes from people in the backfield, but we got to be able to keep the defense honest with those threats up at the top.
And Nyle Mclaughlin, obviously, guy, since I saw him in high school, there's been a lot of buzz about him, and he's kind of been the next guy. You say he's been banged up, and so have you been allowing him to get hit a little bit here? Because it feels like that's the one thing we haven't seen him have enough time in a game where he's actually getting hit in the mouth and able to make plays.
Right. So we haven't been really allowing him to take a bunch of shots back there. I'm trying to keep him healthy, but we're in the spring we did some things. Obviously we were limited with what we could do with contact, but just getting people around, so you're throwing through traffic, not necessarily hitting him, but I got to step up in the pocket and make this throw, knowing there's some pressure around me. That's one of the things that Nyle is really good at, that I think we're going to benefit from this year. Is his accuracy of throwing the football will look a little different than we were at last year. I think you mentioned the explosiveness. When we did have a few chances to hit the explosive plays last year, we just didn't hook up, right? If you were there, you saw, hey, got a guy open. Oh, we were just that close. and it might have been a little something with the wide out or the quarterback timing. These guys have had a chance to work together all spring, all fall. Nyle is a very accurate passer, so I think with the creativity of Wheels calling the plays and the accuracy of Nyle, when we get those opportunities this year, I feel a lot better about we're going to hit those and we're going to take advantage. You just can't afford to miss on some of those things, and that's what was happening last year too. So I feel good about his accuracy, his pocket presence, as I mentioned. He's a tough kid and just a very, very sound quarterback when it comes to fundamentally strong arm and gets coverages. He understands coverages and smart football player.
And your top 3 linebackers, about as good as you ever had. Where do those guys rank in your time of running the defense, now being head coach, as far as just a top 3 linebacking crew?
Yeah, I mean, Owen Grover, Antonio Santian, what they've done up to this point in their career, there haven't been many. Maybe Ryan Billings comes to mind way back in the day there. We had a crew in 2014 that, Will Jansen was a really good outside backer. Drew Coy was a smart player, names like that. When you start talking about those guys, you're like, yeah, those are some best teams we ever had. I mean, going back to my playing days, you could start throwing Matt Stuffle and Justin Bishop and some of those guys out there too. But these guys are in that category, of teams where we've made some runs and done some special things. And Nate Link, so the other day we were talking as a defensive staff, and Matt Cheddar, our linebacker coach, actually said he thinks there's a chance that Nate Link might be better than both the other guys that I'm talking about based on what he's done so far. I mean, he came back 185, 188 pounds. He's put on 10 pounds muscle. The guy's physical. He's not afraid. I mean, that group has a chance to be really special. And so we've got to do a great job in terms of the way we're calling the defense to, not allow people to, know that we've got this and throw balls. That's where people I think are going to go right now. They're going to see our front 7. They're going to try and attack that young secondary, and we've got to do a great job of getting those guys ready for that and forcing them to have to, work through those linebackers in that front 4 to win football games. So that'll be a big thing.
So you mentioned McLaughlin's arm, but you also mentioned how a lot of your offensive prowess is coming from the backfield. What is the kind of the drive then, or the push? Is there a little bit less hesitance, I guess would be the way of looking at it, for kind of trying your hands at some deep ball?
Right.
Especially with, as I said, McLaughlin's arm.
Right, yeah, I mean, we want to get the ball down the field. We want to make big plays, explosive plays, down the field throws. I think utilizing what you're asking, I think the running back, the stable of backs, getting that established, having an offensive line and a stable of backs that can establish that run game and getting people to have to come down in there. Like, I think we did some of that last year. We just didn't hook up down the field, right, like I'm saying. And so I think that's part of it. That's how they marry together, right? If we got a stable of backs, people got to come up in there. Hey, we got to add an extra man to the box. We got to add the extra hat. Now you got Nyle's big arm. Let's get some vertical throws. Let's set some things up off play action and get that thing down the field and try to use his accuracy and get people open with eyes in the backfield, right? More eyes in the backfield, more eyes in the backs should give you a chance. And then, like Matt was asking, we got to be able to win in some one-on-one matchups when that happens too. And I think that's where the wide receiver piece comes in. But I do think that the accuracy of Nyle, his strength of his arm, that could be something that could be marry well together.
You've got all the components that you need now to be able to execute that.
Right, we just got to execute. that's kind of where we were at last year. I think we didn't quite finish on some of those explosive opportunities, and that's been our MO on offense for a long time. I do think too there's something to be said about having running backs in the backfield that can catch. It's another way to get explosive, to get matchups, right? Big part when you're an offensive coordinator, it's Coach Wheeler always says, hey, players not plays. So where are our matchups on the field? You put 2 backs in the backfield and you get them lined up, a linebacker on your best back. Okay, well, let's see what we can do, maybe get one of those guys down the field. So your vertical threats don't always have to come from the first level. That's where you first think. But then if we can get a guy coming out of the backfield where he starts there, maybe he motions out of there and gets him in a one-on-one with a linebacker, things like that where we get creative to utilize those backs to be explosive, not only running it, but passing it too.
And similar with so many of the other athletic programs here at Wartburg College, it's very local-centric. Heck, a lot of these kids were probably playing against each other in varsity in high school.
Sure.
So kind of tell me about how that local element helps people come together, going from being rivals to being teammates, just kind of what that looks like.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and I think one of the things that's maybe changed that a little bit, because I think back when I was young, way back in the day, early 2000s type of thing, But there's no social media back then, so you didn't really get to know the guy down the road aside from you knew that when you played against him you didn't like him, right? Now these kids are on social media, and half the time you find out like, hey, they might play against each other, and they're actually friends off the field because they've communicated through social media or seen each other through this. They get to know a little bit more about that person aside from they're just some kid from the rival school that I don't like, And so I've seen that kind of change that dynamic a little bit, but there's still part of that that's what trying to bring guys together that have been competing against each other that are that way. That's a big thing. But I think there's also some respect there too. So a lot of these local schools have had great success, and a kid from down the road at another school that's been in a great program. Well, geez, I want to be that guy's teammate. And I think that's kind of where it evolves to, is you realize, geez, that guy's a pretty good guy. He's got a lot of similarities to me, and he knows how to play football and be successful. Okay, I want to be friends with that guy and have that guy on my team. And so I think that's really been a strength of ours, is having that. You're exactly right. Local kind of familiarity. It's a little easier to come together. A little bit about that person's background, a little easier fit. And I think that's always been our deal, is we want to protect in recruiting. If you drew kind of a 3-hour radius around our campus, we want to try and do the best we can at getting, taking care of that, right? Obviously going to take care of our backyard, but really being successful in that radius. And then certainly getting outside of there to find some difference maker type of players. But if you do a good job in that area, especially just with our location, Northeast Iowa, Eastern Iowa football is pretty darn good. We're having a lot of success with those kids. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, a lot of fun. And I think, we're finding the right people that can be what we want to be: humble, hungry, smart, tough, being about the team, those things. When we're out there, that's what we're looking for, and trying to bring those type of guys together. So,
Coach, could you explain the phenomena of the city of Eldridge and the position of quarterback? Your starting quarterback's from Eldridge, your backup quarterback's from Eldridge, and your previous quarterback, Matt Stacia, was from Eldridge. What do you guys have going on there?
Right. I mean, I think Matt Stacia had a big part of that, right? I mean, we've always kind of had an Eldridge. North Scott's been a thing in the past that we've been able to bring some good players from there. Kind of when Matt Stacia came on the scene, blew up as a, Gallardi finalist. We're playing the Final 8. There was just a lot more knowledge about the Wartburg College and what Matt was doing, and we were getting more coverage out in the Quad Cities and that type of thing because of that. And that's really affected, I think, our Eastern Iowa recruiting around that Quad City area. And I think the other thing is Coach Tippett over there at North Scott really does a good job of developing quarterbacks. They run an offense over there that is probably a little bit more advanced. It puts those quarterbacks in a situation where they're able to adjust to becoming a college level quarterback in the style of offense that you're running, reading coverages, making checks at the line. And so we just kind of hit into a nice niche there. And I think it started with Matt. I tried to keep Matt out of it because I know that Nyle doesn't want to be compared to Matt, okay? So I'm not trying to, he's Nyle Mclaughlin. He's a great quarterback, and he's got a chance to do some special things here. I'm not saying he's going to be Matt Stacia or anything like that, so don't publish that I said that. But that's kind of been our conversation. Hey, Nyle, you just be Nyle. You be Nyle, and if you're Nyle, you're going to be great. And so that's we've been kind of keeping it that way for him. And I do think that Carter is a little different than both those guys. You're going to see he's a little more dynamic with his legs. It's really strong arm, but just a different style of quarterback. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. I mean, hopefully we can keep finding them. We just keep driving straight to North Scott when recruiting starts, and we're trying to find the next quarterback for Wartburg College, and I hope we can keep that pipeline going. It's been a lot of fun.
This is the first time in a couple of years for the program we've had a normal offseason.
Yes.
First time you've had a full offseason as a head coach.
Yes.
How much more comfortable is everybody, including yourself, because of that?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Everybody's more comfortable with that. I think a year ago, obviously it's a challenge when you take over as a head coach in July, and your former head coach has you got the track record of our former head coach, and he's kind of established what he wants. You're trying to kind of fit yourself in that box and be a little bit like that guy, right? Mm-hmm. And so it didn't really. I felt like it wasn't as comfortable. I didn't feel like I could always be exactly what I wanted to be because I was trying to make sure I was upholding kind of what had been established. I'm not saying that we've strayed really far from that, but I feel a lot more confident that when the players look at me now, they see me as the leader, not like, oh, geez, this is just where's Coach Willis at right now? I wish we had Coach Willis. We've been through a whole off season together. We've been through a recruiting cycle together. Like I said at the beginning, we've kind of established, a culture, kind of what we're looking to be. And again, it's not like I've changed a bunch of stuff. It's really, I played for Coach Willis. I coached him for almost 20 years. We're not straying too far, but I think when they hear it from me, and it's coming from me through a whole cycle of training in the off season to spring to fall camp and now to the 2022 season, they're more comfortable that, hey, we know that coach has got this thing under control. I think a year ago, maybe some guys were like, okay, first time guy taking over Little Lake, where's Coach Willis, what's going on here? And maybe I was a little bit like that too, like, holy cow, it was more than I thought it was going to be. But now I've been through it, I feel much more comfortable just even getting up in front of the team and knowing that the message that I'm sending is going to be full buy-in. And that's kind of where we're at right now, and I think the players are feeling that same way. And there's a lot of excitement about that. And one of the things I try to do too, which may be a little different from the past, is trying to have the players have more of a say in what do we want to be, right? And so, we created a leadership council of guys that are captains, along with kids from the junior class, sophomore class, and first year class, to kind of help mold what we want to be. And so it's not just all me telling them what to do and they do it. Certainly I'm helping guide that, but I feel like there's gonna be more buy-in when the players are the ones creating the culture and environment that they want, and now we're all coming together, and that's what we're gonna strive to be. And so I think that's made a big difference. I think there's just a better comfort level, like you said. I mean, I just feel like we're in a lot better spot than we were a year ago. And certainly not, coming off of no off season the previous year, just physically we're better, mentally we're better, we're more confident, everyone's more comfortable with where they're at. I think it's gonna hopefully lead to us being back to being Wartburg this fall.
Central last year, obviously, Galliardi winner in Hawkins. I don't know if you sit on the graduation present.
Yeah, I should have. I mean, that guy is tough.
But they're picked ahead of you again. Does that draw a little fire in the belly from the guys? Because, they're not bringing back the best player in the nation this year, and they're still picked ahead of you.
Right. I think it will. My goal right now is not to allow that to distract us, right? Like, kind of what I was saying at the beginning, we certainly have big goals. We've talked about a vision for what we want to be. We've talked about some big goals. Obviously, everyone's going to circle the Central game, all that. But right now, if we're worried about those things, we're not going to be ready for those things when they come. Right now, it's just like, hey, what can I do today to make sure I'm taking care of business? And really all we're focused on right now is Thursday we go to Platteville, and we're going to see what we look like playing against a different team. Okay, so nice scrimmage that day. And then once we kind of get through that, then we'll start getting into a game week, and next week on Monday, then we'll just be, hey, Monmouth College. If we don't beat Monmouth College, our goals are going to get harder. Okay, so we got to take care of Monmouth College. And then we'll click off the next one with Stout, and then you just kind of go down the line. And at some point, that Central game, when it arrives, yes, there will be even, we're already got a lot of fire in our belly. There's a lot of things for that Central game that have gotten us a little bit fired up and riled up about. Obviously, a year ago, what happened over there, not excited about that. We want to redeem ourselves off of that. Certainly with the scheduling of us having to go over there again, I think there's a little bit of like, okay, a little bit fired up about being able to go, okay, that's cool, whatever, wherever we got to go, anytime, any place, let's go. And then like you said, certainly we want to prove ourselves that we've got, 12 50-year seniors in our program right now. We've got a lot of experience that maybe they had a year ago, but hey, none of that won't matter unless we go out there and just make sure we're prepared to beat Monmouth College in the first game, and then we'll just start clicking them off one by one.
Personally for you, you get a chance to win a first conference title too.
Yeah, no doubt. There's plenty of motivation there. I think that's the thing too. Anytime you start a new season, you're always, people you got the W on, we're Wartburg football, but this team is a new team. This team, the 2022 team, really hasn't done anything to prove, anything yet. Why should people think the 2022 team's so great? That's got to be our attitude. Like, we got to prove ourselves. And so that's kind of the approach that we're having right now. And to do that, you got to take it a day at a time and make sure you get better. Get it too far ahead of yourself, and next thing you know, you stumble before you get to where you want to be.
Now,